Well, maybe if you're like me, you wanted to try a 110/90 back out again after having a 120/80 on your bike for a while. And I got this YZ250. I've been running this technically calls for a 110/90 rear tire, but I mean having all these 450s around that have 120/80s, I like to keep my tire selection, pretty straightforward. So I ran a 120/80 on this YZ250 since I had it, and I thought I'd try out recently a 110/90. Now, I did a little bit of internet search like you probably did. You're not going to come up with much information. Most people are like they think the 110 handles a little better, corners a little better in ruts and whatnot. And some people think the 120, which is a wider tire. Remember, the 120 is a wider tire. It's a 120/80. It's wider and a lower. This is taller. This is a 110/90, so it's narrower, but yet it's taller, and most certainly taller, at least by 15 millimeters. Definitely taller. Now that's what gets interesting. When you put this tire on your bike, first thing you're going to notice is the rear end's going to feel a little taller, and the front, if you've been running a 120, let's say you got a 450, you've been running a 120/80, and you go to the local shop, and all they have is a 110/90, or you choose to try it out, or that's just the tire you like, and you already have your bike currently set up for your 120. It will absolutely, and this is one thing I did not find on the internet, it will absolutely change the way the bike handles. It can be addressed real fast, but first thing you got to understand is the rear end of the bike is going to be about 8 to 10 millimeters taller in the rear. And you think, well, that's not a big deal, right? Well, you got to understand, when you mess with your fork height, you're messing with, what, 3 to 8 millimeters, rising your forks up the tubes a little. And that's a pretty significant difference. Well, this is no different when you plate the rear. It's transferring that back up to the front. And I noticed that right away. Going in the corners, it was a little bit more shaky, and I had to rise or lower the forks in the tube to get it back on par. So, as for the tire, I think the 120 actually grips better coming out of corners when you're not in a rut. It most certainly does, because one thing you'll notice about the 120, let me see if I can get down and get some light in here. The 120 definitely has more knob profile on the side, where the 110 does not. The 110 is the knobs almost shoot more straight upwards, where these shoot more outwards, and it's really hard to show that here. I'm trying the best I can, but you can kind of see it more right here. Let me get them a little more lined up. Okay. Yeah. Well, it doesn't really show it justice. Maybe. Yeah, you could see it, but maybe not real well. Anyways, the 120 rolls the knobs more over to the edge, definitely better. And when the tire tilts on axis and you're cornering, you definitely, I noticed that for certain. Now, one thing I did notice is the taller 110. It was almost as if you removed a tooth from the sprocket. It seemed to get a little bit better traction, but it wasn't that it was actually getting better traction. It's that the gearing on my bike changed a little bit, and I noticed that. So the delivery was a little easier to the tire, and it allowed it to hook up better. But there's definitely differences, and I'm going back to the 120 to try it out again, and I might stick with the 120 on this two-stroke right here. And the reason why is because I think as a whole, the 120, first of all, your rear end is going to be sitting about 10 millimeters lower, without messing with the sag, without messing with your linkage, where the progressive rate is on linkage and all that. And that's kind of important if you're real familiar with your bike. So it allows the rear end of the bike to feel lower, which allows you to actually slide the forks up in the clamp to balance that out. And what it does is it allows the bike to go in the corner, like switchbacks and all that, rutted corners. The bike feels more like it's able to do it rather than wanting to climb out every time you're in a corner. So now the 110 did have its advantages, like I said. Definitely more stable, and the end result of the 110/90, the bike was more stable because I had to slide the forks down in the clamps, which made the front end not shake as much when you're rough straights and all that kind of stuff. The whole bike felt like it sat taller, and that felt pretty cool on rough sections when the track got rough. But like I said, there was a section of switchbacks on my track that I was struggling with the 110. I most certainly was. and where the 120, because it's lower. Now, like I said, some people will say the ruts will get you more on the 120. It's harder to do ruts. Here's another one. If you've done an internet search, you're going to hear people say, "Oh, my bike corner is so much better with the 110." Well, it wasn't the 110 that made their bike corner better. It was the fact that they're unaware the 110 is taller. And I got two brand new tires, 110 and 120. The 110 is clearly taller, significantly taller than the 120. And what that does, like I said, it pitches the bike forward a little bit like this. It will corner in better. It absolutely will. Almost to the point, if your bike's if you already got your bike dialed in right on the edge, it's going to push over the edge where you'll have to dial it back. I did. I was running my clamps at 7.7 millimeters, rised up. I had to back them down to 6.25, with the 110, because it got too nervous. So with the 120, I'm gonna bring these back up again, and yeah, they're both good tires. I think the 120 might better suit me just because of some of the corners. I'll find out, but there's differences. You just can't throw the tire on and say, "Oh, my bike's cornering better because of the tire." It's not because of the tire itself. It's actually what it's doing to your chassis, and you can work the other one just the same. It's all a preference, but there's definitely a difference. So, all right, hopefully I monetize this one.